This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash, Team Valor, and Truman, and brought to you by Normandy 1998, who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, this will guarantee that your topic is produced as well, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. But with that out of the way, let's get on with the video. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a child is born on the planet of Shrulur. This is not an uncommon occurrence, as in Hutt space children are a dime a dozen, sometimes quite literally, though amongst the millions of mewling whelps, this child is different, for he is blessed with the gift of force sensitivity. His name, Hondo Onaka. Like most children on Shrulur, Hondo is guaranteed neither safety nor survival, having to fight and scrounge for both, though this is not to say he is entirely on his own, as he is born into a family of petty criminals who are quick to teach him the tricks of their trade, if only so he can earn his keep, with the boy finding himself engaged in pickpocketing, or even being slid into tight spaces his parents cannot reach by the time he can walk. This is common practice for Weequay younglings, though unlike his peers, Hondo soon distinguishes himself for having a sixth sense of sorts, always knowing when a mark has clocked him just in time to make a quick getaway before they can grab him, with this saving the young Weequay more than once, since on Shrulur, justice is swift, and often delivered at the end of a blaster. However, no one's luck lasts forever, as one day a traveller from the stars comes to Shrulur. From the looks of him, he is not a smuggler, nor a hardened bounty hunter, who are the usual breed of off-worlder to visit Hutt space, but instead an unassuming man in simple woven clothes, though this is not what draws the eyes of all he passes. No, that honour goes to the glistening silver cylinder swinging from his waist. Truthfully, Hondo does not know what it is, but he knows that he wants it since it's shiny and therefore valuable, and so making his move before one of his rivals gets any bright ideas, he steps forward and pretends to stumble into the man, giving his apology while deftly applying those sticky fingers to unclip the cylinder and slide it into his tunic. Like most off-world marks, this man doesn't even notice that he has been robbed, allowing Hondo to start walking away, though before he can round a corner and vanish into the throng of other Weequay, he feels something lift him off his feet, as he is suddenly jerked backwards several feet, before the hand of his victim clamps tight around the collar of his shirt. While some would accept their fate here, Hondo is not one of them, thrashing wildly in a vain attempt to escape despite being scrawny and small for his age, while his captor is a fully grown human. Showing no apparent anger for this defiance of the theft, the man simply draws the silver cylinder from out of Hondo's tunic and begins making preparations to reattach it to his belt. However, unwilling to let such a lucrative payday slip through his fingers, young Weequay stretches out a hand, almost as if he can will the object to return to him, and to his immense surprise, it wiggles in the human's hand. At once, his captor's demeanor shifts, as in a voice of purest shock, he asks how Hondo did that, to which the boy honestly answers that he doesn't know, too stunned to think up a convincing lie. Fixing a stern gaze upon him now, the human questions if he's ever experienced anything like that before, or else known something was going to happen right before it did, and when Hondo nods, a look of immense satisfaction fills the stranger's face. A few minutes later, Hondo has led this stranger back to his family's hovel, having felt oddly compelled to do so when the man had instructed it, with this resulting in less than warm welcome, as Hondo's parents are awoken by the arrival after a night of heavy drinking and gambling. Paying the blasters pointed him no mind, the human politely introduces himself as a member of the Jedi Order, before explaining that he's come to take Hondo away to a better life. Unfortunately, his parents don't overly care, as currently he's their biggest money spinner, while needing the least amount of food to sustain, with the plan being to sell him to the Hutts once he gets bigger and more costly to feed. Though recognizing this just as easily as he recognizes the pile of bottles littering the shack, the Jedi proposes a trade, the boy for 25 peggets, a sum which will more than tide them over for at least a year in a place such as this. Eyes lighting up at the prospect of that much money, the two adult Weequay are happy to accept these terms, as in truth they would have accepted half that much, though being shrewd they do not say this, instead taking their winnings and waving their son out of their lives without a second thought. Naturally, this leaves the toddler Hondo devastated, as well as home life had not been great, it had been home. Though sensing this, the Jedi takes his hand and guides him away, promising that he will find a new home and family within the Order. Unfortunately, at this point the young Weequay is not looking at things with such a long view as the Jedi, instead struggling to break free of his hold, though once again he is unsuccessful, as he is brought to the spaceport and onto the stranger's ship. On Trelaw, one of the fundamental rules is never to cry, even as a youngling, since tears are viewed as a sign of weakness, and weakness is all the invitation the more unscrupulous members of Weequay society, which is to say most of the ones still living on the planet, need to mark someone as a victim to be exploited or worse. However, that is exactly what Hondo does as this strange ship takes flight, and he watches his world become just a small jewel among many, and then a pinprick in the endless blackness before they enter hyperspace. Sensing Hondo's distress, the Jedi once more offers compassion and comfort, though this just further agitates the boy, as another of his homeworld's fundamental rules is that people are only kind to lower the guard of someone they plan to hurt. However, the hurt never comes, with the human instead taking this time to explain the role of the Jedi Order as a force for good in the galaxy, helping those like himself who need someone strong to protect them, with this idea coming as a revelation to little Hondo, who had never imagined the strong actually using their power for the good of others, rather than to lord over them. This concept stays with Hondo all the way to Coruscant, where as promised, he is formally inducted into the Order, even if he is skirting the bounds of being too old. As part of this induction, he is placed into an Initiate clan, specifically Kaibuk clan, where he meets a number of his fellow Jedi younglings, though none stand out to him quite like an uptight little boy named Obi-Wan Kenobi. In many ways, Obi-Wan and Hondo seem like polar opposites, as the young human is a rule-bound goody two-shoes who seems to worship the Jedi code as though it was handed down by the great god Quay himself. Naturally, such a person as that is too amusing not to tease, with Hondo frequently poking fun at Obi-Wan's stiff nature, though in spite of this he also does his best to look out for the human, as he considers him to be his first real friend. Due to being clanmates, Obi-Wan and Hondo are inseparable, sharing their dormitory, their training, and in some cases their escapades, as while Hondo does prove himself a very quick study with a good eye for details and the ability to make split-second decisions, all of which are traits the Masters applaud, he is also prone to rule-breaking, such as the time he started a sabak ring in the dorm, or else his habit of practicing his force telekinesis by lifting desserts out of the kitchen and onto his plate at mealtime, with this earning him praise and punishment in equal measure. Nonetheless, Hondo is happy at the temple, with it truly becoming his home, as the food is plentiful, the beds are cleaner than back on Trelaw, and he has friends like Obi-Wan at his side. Not to mention, one day he'll be able to stick up for the little guy across the galaxy like the knight had found him had said, though he does believe it's stupid they don't make the little guy pay for the privilege, or at least loot the guy they're standing up against. Finally, after around a decade of training, the day that every youngling dreams of comes around, the Gathering, in which Kaibuk clan is brought to the world of Ilum by Master Yoda so they can find their Kyber crystal and construct their very own lightsabers. Being a good little initiate, Obi-Wan naturally finds his crystal first, with it turning blue, a surprise to Hondo, as he'd been running a betting pool on what color everyone's crystals would be, with the smart money placing Obi-Wan's as green considering his philosophical bent. As for Hondo, he figures he's a shoo-in for blue, as his creative ideology when it comes to combat, and his desire to be a strong arm of the Order mark him as a guardian for sure, though to his surprise, he does not find a blue crystal. In fact, he does not find any crystal that resonates him at all in the central chamber, having to make his way through a narrow winding passage deep underground until finally he feels it, the call of his crystal, and as he pulls it from the cave wall, he is shocked to see it turn yellow, naming him a sentinel. From here, the younglings all proceed to build their lightsabers, and while the droid Professor Hu Yang does not allow Hondo to build a hidden blaster into the hilt of his weapon, he does praise the boy's hilt as it's built to be more of a finesse weapon than most Jedi use, though one which with the right training could make him a considerable duelist when he's older. This activity also marks the final stretch of Kaibuk clan's youngling journey, with it not being long before they are all assigned masters. Like with the Gathering, Obi-Wan is among the first chosen, being selected by Master Yaddle, whose patient demeanor will fit Obi-Wan well, while due to his less than rigid view of rules but undeniable devotion to the Jedi, the natural master for Hondo is Qui-Gon Jinn, in the hopes that if the boy's brasher traits cannot be hammered out, then they can at least be sculpted into something that is not actively detrimental to his development as a Jedi. At first, Qui-Gon struggles a bit with Hondo, finding him reckless and overly cocky in a way that his own master never would have tolerated, even from his first Padawan Rael Avros, who has a reputation as a renegade among Jedi. Though, with that being said, he is not blind to the boy's good qualities, especially his shrewd, observant, and even mindful manner of thought, which is something he believes is essential to understanding the living force, and so begins to instruct him in that, with this allowing a bridge to form between master and apprentice, as in turn, Hondo is willing to listen once it becomes clear that Qui-Gon is not the same as some of the more cold, stiff-necked and dogmatic masters such as Jocasta Nu or Mace Windu. As part of their bonding, Qui-Gon helps Hondo develop a technique which he dubs his Force Sabak face, in essence allowing him to mask his thoughts and intentions even from other Force users while they're actively attempting to peer into his mind, a skill he wishes he'd had back in the temple during the many occasions he was caught out of bed. This is one of many ways in which Hondo and Qui-Gon help each other to grow as they become a close-knit pair, developing a deep trust in one another that carries them through many tough situations throughout the years. One particularly harrowing experience is the year-long mission to Mandalore to protect Duchess Satine Kryze from insurgents, with them having to go on the run as they are hunted by ruthless Mandalorian warriors. Unfortunately, due to Hondo's roguish ways and Satine's propensity to moralize at the drop of a hat, the young pair do not develop any romantic feelings during this time, instead frequently bickering to the point that when the mission is done and the Duchess is returned to her throne, she and Hondo sincerely hope to never meet again. Not long after this, Hondo and Qui-Gon are once more dispatched to help deal with the young planetary monarch's political conflicts with a more ruthless faction, this time the Trade Federation, who have taken to blockading Naboo. Hoping they can mediate as impartial Republic ambassadors, the two Jedi arrive on the Trade Federation command ship to negotiate with Viceroy Newt Gunray. Though knowing how to smell a womp rat even without the aid of the Force, Hondo can tell these guys are bad news, with it coming as little surprise when Gunray has the meeting room flooded with poison gas, before sending in a squad of battle droids. Chopping their way through the ship, Master and Apprentice then split up, rendezvousing down on the planet where it seems Qui-Gon has acquired a hanger-on named Jar Jar Binks, whose foolishness reminds Hondo of the capering of a Quakian monkey lizard, with him therefore being rather eager to keep him around. From here, the Naboo portion of the Phantom Menace plays out much like in canon, with Qui-Gon taking the lead while Hondo backs him up, as they travel to Gungan City, meet Boss Nass, and then pass through the planet's core to Theed, so they may rescue Queen Amidala and her retinue. The real change comes when they arrive on Tatooine, as Hondo, having a great affinity for such a dodgy place, as well as vaguely remembering his own home to be a desert planet, decides to tag along with Padme, Jar Jar, Qui-Gon and the droid R2-D2. Subsequently, he is present at Watto's shop, and while he is a better barterer than Qui-Gon, using his silver tongue rather than the Force, the part they need is still outside their price range, even after several hours of haggling, with Hondo offering to trade him their droid for the hyperdrive, earning him a painful zap from R2's inbuilt cattle prod. Seeing they will not resolve this today, the group then attempt to seek shelter for the evening with a sandstorm coming in, though Hondo warns they will not find any, as everyone on worlds like these only look out for themselves. Only to be immediately proven wrong, as the slave boy from Watto's shop, Anakin Skywalker, invites them all to stay with him and his mother. This display of kindness to near-total strangers, as well as the knowledge that had the Jedi not found him, he would have wound up in a similar position to this boy, causes Hondo to instantly warm to young Anakin, with the pair chatting all the way back to the Skywalker residence. As Padme, Qui-Gon and Jar Jar all get to know Anakin's mother Shmi, the boy leads Hondo to his room to show him the protocol droid he's building out of scrap, with the Weequay praising this ingenuity for turning junk into something worthwhile. Wanting to impress Hondo further, Anakin then blabs about his true secret project, the pod racer he intends to enter into the Boonta Eve Classic, with this causing the young Jedi's eyes to light up, as he might have just found the answer to their prayers and more. However, this is not the only discovery during the hero's time here, as Hondo quickly finds that he is almost as fond of Shmi Skywalker as he is of Anakin, since while he barely remembers his own mother and truly considers the Jedi his family, to see the sort of loving relationship he wanted with his own parents does his heart good. Meanwhile, through a blood test, Qui-Gon learns that Anakin's midichlorian count is the highest on record, even surpassing Master Yoda's, to the point he believes the boy to be the chosen one. This does at least make the bearded master more amenable to Hondo's plan to gamble for the hyperdrive in the upcoming pod race, with him also wanting to use the bet to emancipate Anakin. Thankfully, as an even more inveterate gambler than Hondo himself, Watto accepts these terms, though he will not gamble for the freedom of both mother and son, forcing Hondo to seek out a more creative avenue, as he approaches Jabba the Hutt and his people, wagering his lightsaber, and unbeknownst to his master, Qui-Gon's too, against enough money to buy Shmi, and a little extra for himself. As in canon, Anakin is victorious here, meaning Watto is forced to free Anakin while after collecting his winnings, Hondo saunters into the shop to purchase and free Shmi, albeit at a somewhat reduced rate, as it seems Watto needs money badly after getting cocky at the thought of swindling 2 Jedi, and betting a bit too much on Sebulba to win the race, meaning he is forced to meet Hondo's terms if he doesn't want to be fed to the Sarlacc by his creditors. Upon hearing that they have been freed, both Skywalkers are overjoyed, though there is still a bittersweet edge to this, as while Shmi can come with them to Coruscant, she is to have no contact with Anakin once he begins his training, meaning all Hondo managed to buy them was a bit more time together. Nonetheless, wanting to make the most of this opportunity, the group now comprised of Qui-Gon, Hondo, Padme, Jar Jar, R2, Anakin, Shmi, and the protocol droid C-3PO make treks towards where Queen Amidala's ship sits waiting. However, this is far from an easy trip, as while crossing the desert they are accosted by a black-robed figure who attacks with a red double-bladed lightsaber, forcing Qui-Gon and Hondo to hold him off while the others get on board the ship. Thankfully, due to fighting together in perfectly open terrain, the Jedi have the advantage, forcing their assailant who is clearly more of an assassin to retreat while they make their escape. Following this, the heroes head back to Coruscant where they split up, with the Jedi and Anakin returning to the temple, where Anakin is tested, though refused admission into the Order on the grounds that he is too old, causing Hondo to ask if the Council have Poodoo for brains. This is the Chosen One, and they just fought a Sith Lord, i.e. the ancient enemy the Chosen One is destined to destroy. They need him. Tersely, Windu dismisses this as Hondo not knowing his place, though Qui-Gon, pleased by his apprentice's support, suggests that he takes the trials, further upsetting Windu and the more traditionalist council members. However, there is no time for that now, as it seems Queen Amidala means to return to Naboo and retake Theed, meaning as her protectors, it is their duty to return with her. From here, events resume their canon course, leading up to the second fight between the Jedi and Maul, in which Hondo does put up a good fight, though tragically, even his presence is not enough to stop Qui-Gon from losing his life. Though it is enough to ensure that Maul is defeated, as not being the sort of sucker who fights at a disadvantage, he immediately pulls Qui-Gon's blade to his hand, and while using one lightsaber to trap Maul in a parry, expounds on how having a double-bladed lightsaber, while cool-looking, comes with a serious problem, specifically that when one blade is locked, so is the other. He then gives a practical demonstration, activating Qui-Gon's saber right into Maul's exposed stomach while he can't block, dropping the Sith Lord in an instant, and allowing Hondo to take him prisoner, before sharing a moment with his master, in which he promises to train Anakin in accordance with Qui-Gon's dying wish. Following this, the people of Naboo celebrate, while the Jedi mourn, though at least with the Sith Lord captured, they can interrogate him. At least that is what they think before he mysteriously dies in captivity that very evening, forcing that investigation into a dead end, while Hondo begins to suspect that there might be something sinister at play within the Republic itself. However, this is not something he has the time or energy to investigate, as he is now a Jedi Knight in his own right and is a precocious young student who is as talented as he is willful, causing Hondo to more than once wonder if this is some sick joke by his master from beyond the grave, to saddle him with the younger version of himself for all the trouble he gave Qui-Gon growing up. But that is not to say it is a bad partnership, as due to their personalities being closer than Anakin and Obi-Wan, as well as the fact that Hondo actively helped him and his mother and showed interest in his hobbies, they have a much less contentious relationship, with Hondo even taking Anakin out on training missions, which are either fun misadventures on the lower levels, or to visit Shmi, who has settled on Coruscant and found stable work as a diner that allows her to live comfortably, with Padme also becoming someone they frequently visit once she becomes a senator and relocates to the city planet. This helps Anakin grow into a more well-adjusted young man, as while he still has unresolved trauma, not to mention the struggles of adapting to a new oppressive structure whose core philosophy goes against his very nature, he also has a strong support network, headed up by people like his master, his mother, and Padme that he can trust, not to mention Obi-Wan, who has also been made a Jedi Knight shortly after the death of his master on the same day as Maul. Though Obi-Wan is naturally saddened by this loss, he is somewhat comforted by getting to enjoy the chance to tease his old friend for once, as he's constantly beleaguered from teaching, while Obi-Wan himself has more freedom than he's ever known in his life, since he's in no rush to take a Padawan. All the same, he does help out with Anakin from time to time, imparting lessons Master Yaddle taught him, as well as helping him to spar, since his affinity for Form 3 is a good counterbalance to Hondo's favouring of the swashbuckling Form 2 and the more aggressive Form 4. He even occasionally joins them on their training assignments, grumbling all the while and threatening to turn them into the Council, though being a loyal friend, he never actually makes good on it, with him also befriending Shmi, Padme, and Jar Jar. All this to say Anakin is far less reliant on Palpatine as a parental figure, much to the Sith Lord's frustration, though for now he has other prospects, such as his new apprentice Lord Tyrannus, who has helmed a separatist movement which throws the Republic into turmoil, as well as order the assassination of now Senator Amidala as part of his grander ambitions. Using this to his advantage, the Chancellor has Master Yoda assign Hondo and Anakin as her security detail. Due to being in frequent contact, things are far less stilted than in canon, with Padme's trust in the Jedi being far greater, allowing them to use the security camera in her room, meaning when the bounty hunter Zam Wessel attempts to poison her with centipedes, Anakin and Hondo are able to leap to her defense before pursuing the assassin. Here Hondo's trust in Anakin pays off, as allowing him to make some reckless decisions during the speeder chase without constant badgering. They're able to tail Wessel back to her meeting place with Jango Fett. However, upon seeing they've been found out, Fett kills his associate with a saber dart, then flees to cover his tracks, though at the cost of the two Jedi getting a look at his distinctive Mandalorian armor. This forces the Master and Apprentice to investigate, while also sending Padme back to Naboo for safety's sake. And while Hondo does consider taking the guard job for himself, since it had been hanging around in the peaceful lake country sipping fruity cocktails while Anakin does the legwork, he accepts that as the teacher, and the one with more experience dealing with Mandalorians, he should take the harder job. His first port of call in the investigation is none other than Shmi, figuring that maybe she'd know about this strange dart from her time working for Watto, though unfortunately she can't help beyond putting Hondo in contact with her boss, a man named Dexter Jetster. Thankfully, Dexter does ID this dart as Kaminoan, though when Hondo scours the Jedi archives for any information on this world, he is shocked to see that they have no records, with Jocasta New haughtily claiming that if a world is not in the archives, it does not exist. However, having never thought very highly of her narrow-minded way of thinking, Hondo is happy to prove her wrong by simply heading down to the local Spaces Guild, where he finds a map easily, while scoffing at the archivist's arrogance. Meanwhile, Anakin and Padme arrive on Naboo, and thanks to being less angsty, Annie is able to actually smooth-talk Padme, rather than making unsolicited commentary on sand and showing off his pair-floating abilities. Though this is not the only benefit of this time away, as with no nightmares of his mother to haunt him, due to Palpatine knowing Anakin will not bring Padme back to Coruscant, meaning it would be pointless to kill Shmi now, the normally brash Padawan is able to experience some calm, showing the softer side of himself that Padme had found so endearing during their time on Tatooine. Back with Hondo, he arrives on Kamino, and after inspecting the clone army supposedly made on the order of Master Cypher Diaz, he is brought to the quarters of their template, Jango Fett. While Hondo is quickly able to conclude that Fett is the man he's looking for, he is shrewd enough not to challenge him here and now, instead settling in for a few hands of sabacc, which the Jedi loses on purpose to lull Jango into a false sense of security. However, being a savvy man, Jango is smart enough to see what Hondo is doing and flees all the same, forcing the Jedi to chase after him while grumbling that he threw away all those credits for nothing. Following a brief battle out in the rain, during which time Hondo admits that he quite likes Fett, since he can hold a blaster almost as well as he can hold a bad hand of cards, the bounty hunter escapes, though not before Hondo plants a tracker on his ship for good measure. This allows him to follow Slave One all the way to Geonosis, at which point he contacts the Council to inform them of his location and what he's learned so far, having allowed Anakin to tinker with his starfighter to boost the signal range of his comms among other secret modifications. Sagely, Windu orders him to wait while they dispatch someone to assist him, though not liking the idea of waiting around while his target escapes, he feigns signal interference and ends the call before sneaking into the Geonosian stronghold. Here he bears witness to the assembly of the Separatist Council, though unfortunately he is still captured and held until Dooku comes to pay him a visit. Like he did to Obi-Wan in canon, Dooku attempts to win Hondo to his side by evoking Qui-Gon's name and claiming that a Sith controls the Senate and that the Jedi are too blinded by the dark side to see it, two assertions Hondo is all too willing to agree with, even taking Dooku up on his offer to join him and destroy the Sith, stating that he hates them for what they did to Qui-Gon and Master Yaddle. Accepting this on face value, as all reports of Hondo from his time at the temple suggest that he was never one for the Order's dogma, Dooku lets him down, and they promise to begin plotting, though first he must go see his master, as this alliance will mean a change in their plans. Telling him to take his time and have a glass of Kowakian rum on him, Hondo drops his remaining credits into Dooku's hand, though this is a misdirect, as it allows him to use the Force to slip his active comlink onto the Count's belt unnoticed, employing a combination of his skills as a Jedi and the ones he learned as a child, while employing the Force sabacc-faced Qui-Gon helped him develop, truly making this gambit something no one but he could pull off. On the other end of the comm, the Council listen intently as Hondo slyly reiterates the situation in a manner that seems natural, but gives them the foresight to stay silent and activate the comms tracker as Dooku departs Geonosis alone. To their great surprise, the location of Dooku's master is none other than the industrial section of Coruscant, though this is nothing to the shock they feel when Dooku's master speaks, and they all hear the extremely familiar voice of Chancellor Palpatine. With his confirmation that the Chancellor is the Sith Lord, and that Dooku was telling the truth, the Council mobilize, while Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme are dispatched along with a battalion of clones to rescue Hondo from Geonosis, since he will be in great danger when their enemies realize what he's done. Heading to the Chancellor's office, it is the entire Jedi Council who ambush Palpatine upon his return, with this including members like Yoda, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Plo Koon, all of whom prove instrumental in the battle to come, as well a few councillors such as Kit Fisto and Shaak Ti are slain. The united power of the Masters is enough to force Palpatine to surrender, with him promptly being arrested and taken away. Meanwhile, when Padme and the Jedi arrive on Geonosis, expecting to find Hondo held at blaster point, or worse, awaiting execution by rabid beasts, they instead discover that the Separatist Council meeting room has been converted into the scene of a party, with the Weequay Jedi laughing it up with Poggle the Lesser, while the rest of the Separatist leaders lie unconscious, as Hondo apparently got them all drunk while awaiting rescue. Though she'd never say it, Padme does get some pleasure in watching a very hungover Newt Gunray get dragged away, while Anakin laughs that no one but his master could pull off an audacious plan like that, only to be met with shock as Hondo asks, what plan? He was bored, it was hot, and the council chamber had wine. Unfortunately, while this is a victory for the Jedi and the Republic, it is not a total victory, as some figures such as Dooku and Jango Fett manage to escape, though in Fett's case, he is hardly an issue, as in the end, he is just a simple man trying to make his way through the galaxy, meaning he holds no grudges. As for Dooku, without Palpatine pulling the strings and urging for war, he is an opponent who can be defeated on the Senate floor, not the battlefield. And speaking of Palpatine, though it is a long and arduous trial thanks to his deep pocket and knowledge of legal loopholes, he is ultimately convicted of conspiracy and treason thanks to a plea deal and testimony from Gunray and several other separatists, seeing him sentenced to life in prison, while new Chancellor Bail Organa guides the Senate into addressing the issues currently facing the Republic, such as working to regain the trust of separatist-leaning worlds and finding a place for their new surplus of cloned citizens. And just like that, a bloody conflict which was set to tear the galaxy asunder is averted, and the machinations of Darth Sidious are brought to an end, with the only one still bothered being Anakin, as he thought he was supposed to destroy the Sith. Though clapping him on the back, Hondo tells him not to worry so much about prophecies, since if the guys making them were so smart, they would have prophesied away not to be old dead guys, before urging his apprentice to join him in a cantina on the lower levels, since he saw the way Amidala was looking at him on the flight home, so he wants to hear all about it over a drink. And this will not be the last drink these two friends share. Far from it, as they will have much to celebrate in the coming years, such as Anakin's ascension to the rank of Jedi Knight, Obi-Wan finally taking a young Togruta Padawan, allowing Hondo to tease his friend this time, and eventually the day in which Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Hondo are all granted the rank of Jedi Master, even if this takes considerably longer than usual for one among their number. However, even as a Master, Hondo does not rest on his laurels, as after many years, he decides to take a new Padawan, another little boy with a fondness for machines and dreams of adventure named Luke Amidala, while Anakin in turn elects to train his twin sister, a girl named Leia, both of whom had been born under mysterious circumstances, though whose immense force sensitivity had ensured their place in the Order. Having already been on this pod race once before, Hondo knows that it won't be easy, especially if the boy is as stubborn as his parents, though as he looks to his future, he has a good feeling about this. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.